Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. There seems to be an explicit contrast between our reading yesterday in chapters 22 through 24 of Numbers and of our reading today in chapter 25. If you remember, yesterday in chapters 22 through 24, we saw God's intent on blessing his people. Even though Balak wanted them cursed, and it might even be that Balaam himself wanted them to be cursed. Despite all of that, God blessed his people by mentioning what he had done for them in the past, but even more so emphasizing the blessings that awaited them in the future, even victory over their enemies. However, when we get into chapter 25, we see the unfaithfulness of the people. We see that the daughters of Moab come in and commit harlotry with them, and that the children of Israel follow after the gods of Moab. And so you have both physical harlotry and spiritual harlotry taking place in chapter 25. And as a result, 24,000 people die. And this seems to be intentional, the way these are brought out in the text. The theological truth or principle that's being brought out here is that God will always be faithful to his people. God's intent is not to curse his people. He has no evil intent towards his people. That became very evident in the story of Balaam yesterday. God has no intention of mistreating his people or forsaking his people. The only way that his people will come to demise is through their own lusts and their own evil desires. And that's what chapter 25 brings out. In other words, if the relationship goes awry, if things go wrong, it's because of the people, not because of any unfaithfulness in God. And this becomes a theme really throughout the Old Testament. Time and time again, we see the unfaithfulness of the people contrasted with the faithfulness of God. And that will ultimately be brought about through Jesus Christ, when God truly and absolutely shows his faithfulness to his people by sending his son to die for their sins and to reconcile them and bring them back to himself. But this is the contrast here, and the principle that we can learn from even today is that very thing, that God is faithful. God has every intent to bless us. God has blessings for us that he has demonstrated in the past through Jesus Christ. There's blessings that we enjoy even in the present through Jesus Christ. We've been blessed with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 3 teaches us. But he also has an intent to bless us in the future with victory over our enemies, victory over the world, and eternal life. And God's full intent is to bless us and to bless us abundantly. However, the one thing that can cause everything to go a bit awry is our own lusts and our own desires and our own unfaithfulness to the Lord. And so this ought to encourage us to say, you know what? We know God's going to be faithful on his end. We know that he's got his part of the relationship covered. Now I must be very careful in the way that I live my life in response to what God has done for me. And so we must avoid the desires and the lusts that lead us astray. And the New Testament shows us how we can do that. And that's simply by walking according to the Spirit and not according to the flesh. Clearly here in Numbers chapter 25, the people are walking according to the flesh, committing harlotry with these daughters of Moab, in the story with the daughter of Midian there, the Midianite or the Midianitis, and then them committing also harlotry spiritually with the idols and things of that sort. And so it shows us that if a person follows their own lusts and their own desires, they're going to be led away from the Lord. And that way leads to destruction. But we want to go the pathway of life. We want to go the pathway of the Spirit. Paul tells us that if we walk according to the flesh, it means death. But if we walk according to the Spirit, it means life and peace. And that's what we want. God's going to keep his part of the relationship, but he opens that up to us as we walk according to the Spirit, draw close to him, set our minds upon the things of the Spirit, and live with our hearts intent on him, devoted to him, and loving him continually. So let's be encouraged to do that today. Let's be warned not to walk according to our own lusts, and be encouraged to walk according to the Spirit, after God's desires, after God's own heart. And if we but do that, we are guaranteed blessings both today and tomorrow. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.